everyone. Welcome to the
Okay.
Dividing Alignment podcast. I have my teacher, Lauren Antuofermo, here with me today. She is an astrologer and an intuitive channel, and she actually taught me about the Akashic Records, so I'm really excited to have her on. How you doing?
Hey, Julia. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Great. So I'm really excited to talk to you because, first of all, I think that you're so gifted. And on top of that, you're really, really great with astrology. And like full disclosure, I never feel connected with astrology because as a Capricorn, I always feel like we get the shit end of the stick. Like I'm supposed to be like this shark-like CEO who's willing to sacrifice family members at the altar of money. And I'm just like sort of, but mostly that's wrong, you know? And so I never felt connected to it.
Yeah.
And so I was never able to feel like I'm an authority with astrology, but I like how you talk about that. Do you mind describing how you talk about authority and then how you use astrology?
Yeah, I would love to. Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for having me. And I love what you're doing. Your podcasts are amazing. I love the authority that you speak with already. To me, that's very Capricorn like.
Oh,
Capricorns tend to have this sense of self that is, you know, all of the signs are archetypes. It doesn't tell us who we are. It might tell us how we enact our energy onto the world, right? So it doesn't tell us who we are, but in astrology, we play and we make fun of the signs, and we always know a Pisces is going to be dreamy and not always be able to pay attention. And we know a Capricorn is no BS. They want to get the job done. They want to get it right. So there are certain characteristics that do show up pretty commonly, depending on your sun sign, rising sign, and moon sign, which I have a whole course that talks about just those big three in just the way how it applies to how you can know yourself, not necessarily who you are. So when I talk about authority, when we did the Akashic records, we had this solar plexus energy after we connected to the heart. And that solar plexus energy is really how we stand in our authority in today. And because the solar plexus is akin to the sun sign, and this is the way Spirit explained to me, how we enact our energy onto the world, how we claim our energy field, using that sign, using that ability to connect with the solar plexus, you know who you are when somebody is watching and when nobody is watching. You really kind of have this, when nobody is watching, you're kind of like the person that understands everything through your own view. And when somebody's watching, it's like this, the ascendant sign is there when somebody's watching, but your authority, who you are, how you enact energy onto the world, your identity with your I am really has a lot to do with your solar plexus and your sun sign. So that's why I use it like that.
I that actually makes a lot of sense to me because I have always had a ton of willpower. And the idea that we express ourselves through our solar plexus chakra, like when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, because it relates to the sun. And then as our sun sign, I get why we're doing that. And I like how you call them archetypes
Yeah.
because I think out there it's very much like this is your personality.
Yeah.
People use it to be like, oh, I'm garbage because I'm a Scorpio, or and I'm like, I don't get it.
Never forget about it. And it's a joke in astrology. Every sign thinks they're the worst except for Sagittarius. Everybody always loves Sagittarius because they're ruled by Jupiter, but they're annoying too. So, like they have their own annoying habits. But um but everybody has like this, shadow side and light side. We're not supposed to be everything all at once. We choose different. It's like having when you apply a law to something, right?
Mhm.
It applies in the moment. It applies like towards the circumstances too. It's not always straight up. Like when in the court of law, you have this law, but the punishments, you can have a jail sentence from one to, maybe I shouldn't use jail sentence as a as a metaphor, but you deciding on the circumstances, it could be longer sentence or lesser sentences, because in astrology you have like this window of opportunity. Every time you have a window of opportunity to grow, your sun sign matures. You go from, maybe being very immature and outbursty, like as an Aries, for example, immature, unable to finish anything, temper tantrums, bossy, can't get along with anybody for too long unless they're, front and center. And as they mature, they start to see their leadership skills. They start to see how they can enact their energy, how they can motivate people, how can they start new beginnings and have people follow up and, show them how to work, within a team. So as you grow older, your sun sign matures, and it takes a long time. I would say from your early 20s is when you're really in the peak of understanding and acting out your sun sign. And in your 50s, you're really at that mature stage and you're kind of more balanced in your sun sign. And you might not need to act upon the world as much anymore once you hit your 50s and 60s. It's
Oh.
not to say that you can't, but it's a different way.
The concept of your sun sign maturing is one that I have never heard before, but I really like that. So is it sort of the idea that it's almost like there's a shadow aspect to one of the
It
archetypes?
is, but it's not, it's like a kid who is learning the alphabet. You know what I mean? He's going to mess up for a few times. I don't know how many times, you mess up the alphabet before you start writing it correctly, capital, script, and Daniil, all these things. So if they mess up, if they don't know it, you don't really say, oh, you're bad, you're a shadow. You're just like filling in the gaps. You're taking like what your brain knows, gaining information and maturing, getting better at writing and reading. So it's kind of, to me, it's a much easier way to understand it and much less offensive. People love to be offensive now. So we can roast every sign or we can like, every sign can be an angel, but it depends on how you look at it.
That makes a lot of sense. So I'm actually interested. So to focus on Capricorns, to focus on myself, I am someone who is sort of like very take charge from the moment I was born. It's funny, when I was a baby, my mom would have to dress me in like pink and pearls and bows and fluffy stuff because people would come up to me when I was like an infant. What a beautiful baby boy. And my mom was like, what is wrong with you people? you know? And I'm like, well, I would look at baby pictures of myself and I'd be like, because it looks like I'm running shit. That's why. Like,
Yes.
and she's
Oh,
like,
you're gonna laugh. Oh,
oh,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, that's
You're gonna laugh because my brother, I have three younger brothers. There's four of us, and one of my younger brothers is a Capricorn. And the long-standing joke with him is that he never laughed. He was always so serious, his face. And every Capricorn baby I know has that same look. Like, I'm checking you out. I'm eyes on you. You know what I mean? Like, and it's so true.
yeah.
I love it though. Yeah.
So that's actually what explains some things for my mom because she was like, even as a baby, you looked at me like I was doing everything wrong. She's like, I know new moms think that they're doing something wrong, but you looked at me like you knew what I was supposed to do and I wasn't doing it and you were judging me. And I'm like, you're overreacting, but you may be onto something. But so what's interesting is that my brother is also a Capricorn, but our personalities are not, at least the way that we front, our personalities are slightly different. Like he's definitely someone who is more emotive, I guess, or at least has
Yeah.
a wider range
Yeah.
willing to express than I do. And it's interesting to me that our birthdays are so close together and we're the same sign, but we express it so differently.
Yeah. Well, because in astrology you have your every sign, you view the world through your ascendant sign. And how people usually perceive you is more of the qualities of your ascendant sign. Quick tip though, like I've been studying more and more about why the ascendant sign is so popular all of a sudden. And it's because we are so faced with our outer personalities that we're identifying more and more with our ascendant sign, I believe. And our physical bodies can sometimes take on the energy of our ascendant sign. In families, especially with siblings, you probably connect more at the moon sign level. you're probably seeing more of his moon sign. And I would be curious to know how his coworkers or friends and family and like outside friends or teachers or whatever see him. Do they see him with the same view that you do? So also, if he has like a Pisces moon sign, he might be more emotive at home, especially than your typical Capricorn.
That makes so much sense. Yeah, because I bet he also has this ability to be like really grumpy, which is probably very much a Capricorn thing.
Yes.
Yeah, very much an old man sometimes, like, get off my lawn. And we're like, Jesus, Tom, you're too young for this.
Because Capricorns have the so as you go through the 12 signs from Libra to Pisces, the last 6 signs, you have a more maturity in development with relationships, personal relationships. So the first 6 signs are about ego development, establishing self, ego with Aries, roots in Taurus, emotions with Cancer, managing emotions, learning emotions. Then mind, using intellect with Gemini, and so on. So we establish these consciousness of like the ego, the identity with the first 6 signs, and the last 6 signs are kind of how you enact your energy in relationship. So Libra is about relationship or balance in relationship or balance with the world. And so Capricorn, to me, so we get all the way to Capricorn, which is the 10th sign, and it's the sign of kind of how you want to put your role out into the world, the legacy you want to leave, how you serve the public even. It's a cardinal sign, so it has more energy to enact, to do things, rather than like, let's say, a mutable sign that is kind of like wishy-washy, that goes with the flow of the environment. Cardinal signs want to make change. They want to start now, not yesterday, or maybe yesterday, not tomorrow. They want to start now or yesterday. So as you get older, the goat or the Capricorn has this old man energy, no matter what sex or gender you are. And it's very wise. It's very steady. It's very, they have an old soul energy. Whether or not their soul is old, they bring that with them because they've supposedly gone through, so many lifetimes already to have this energy. So they bring their wisdom, they bring their desire to use everything they learned before and apply it in real time on Earth. They're an Earth sign. So I love that about Capricorns. And yeah, Capricorns don't usually get the positive side when we're looking online, but that it's beautiful what Capricorns do.
Thank you for saying that, because I
You're
need
welcome.
that validation. Thank you. It is nice. And I like, so the way that you can, I guess, the way the person you are when no one's looking, is that, to me, would that still be my sun sign, or would that be my moon sign? I'm a little confused on that.
So when nobody's looking, it's almost like you stop having to interact, right? When
Right.
nobody's looking, you kind of know what are your values and how do you feel and what is it that makes you you when there's not another energy enacting on you from the outside world.
Yeah.
So that could be moon sign, but a lot of times it's anything that's in the 12th house of your chart. But you don't have to look at astrology for that. You can really see how are you within yourself? Can you be alone and still see, something in you worth just being? It's kind of like they call it, the 12th house is the 12th of undoing of the ego. First house is the ego. 12th house is the undoing of the ego. And so where we kind of like can meditate, where we can visualize, where we can go into the peace within, it's kind of the spiritual house. It's also the house of crazy. Like we can go into delusion too in this house, mental illness and things like that if we don't have strong boundaries and strong sense of connection to source, connection to spirit. And so that is where a lot of people find spiritual connection.
Okay. I feel I get it all of a sudden. This makes, it's like all of a sudden, it's like as you're explaining astrology, I'm like, now I want to know everybody's like signs.
Yeah.
I want to get with all my family and be like, explain yourself to me. When were you born? So,
Yep.
would you mind talking about how you use astrology and the Akashic records together? Because I know that you use the archetypes of astrology.
I do. Well, I want to like hear how you've incorporated what we've taught there too, and how it's helped you. Because I just and I don't want to know more of what you're doing, but I don't want to take up the whole conversation either. So the the Akashic record class was meant to like have every archetype down from, you know, the human soul that's in the body right now, which when you connect to that solar plexus and you help that person own themselves, their light energy can shine through, their joy, the way they act upon their light in the world, right? And so, you know, first we connect with the heart and then the solar plexus. When we first do the first archetype, I use the sun sign just to let them know their main mission. What did they come here to experience, and how were they supposed to learn through this archetype, through these conditions, right? So if I'm Pisces, then I came here to learn brotherly love, right? In a very general sense, that I have less I guess stubbornness, less viewpoints. I can see more viewpoints. I have less need to know everything, more ease, more kind of wanting to know how people feel, because this is the way that I chose to express this lifetime, by learning through emotional compassion for others. So at first I may be stingy. Some Pisces, like, they feel too weak, too, you know, too overwhelmed. Emotions are too much, but they're supposed to learn how to handle other people's emotions because they carry wisdom. After being the 12th sign, after going through all these signs, they carry wisdom. And so their job is literally to use their emotional awareness and compassion to assist humanity in whatever way. Now, you can do that as being a nurse, you can do that as any job or any other purpose in the world, but that quality would still come through. So a lot of people learn their first life lesson. They go, oh, you mean I don't have to be the rigid Capricorn that gets everything done on time all the time, that I'm really here to feel these emotions and I don't have to shame myself about it. So that's the first level of healing that we do in the Akash. And so we give the shadow and the light a chance to look at itself and say, oh, I chose this because this is one of my lessons. You know, it was to make it kind of simple to see right away. What is a soul learning through this archetype? And how could they receive that love for that archetype even more and use it to their best advantage?
Yes, I love that. When you were teaching it the first time, I had a hard time accepting my archetype because I didn't really realize that I had so much shame around it. That
Oh my gosh, I remember that.
I was, I can't believe you didn't kick me out. I was so resistant to like the whole, I don't like Capricorns. I don't like, I had so much shame around it. And it's, I get like giving yourself permission. Well, sometimes I guess for me, it was necessary to give myself permission because it wasn't until I started accepting how I'm running my energy with that archetype that actually started like doing things in my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because then you accept what is meant for you and not how other people are doing it,
Yeah.
right? Like, and that's the whole purpose, like self-discovery, honoring the self so that you can share what you have with the world. You know, I learned, obviously we both worked with Will Carlos the other night, and I learned how his directness can truly be something that helps me get out of the shame of being too wishy-washy at times, right? Like, it gives me the inspiration to take action when I felt too afraid, because I was too afraid to be vulnerable, right? So as a Capricorn, he's here to share that wisdom. I may not do things the way he does, but I can still learn from what he shares.
Yeah. So that is like hindsight. I picked up when you were teaching it, but like looking back, I'm like, that was the permission I needed to be myself, you know?
Yeah.
Um, you were also talking about, for some reason, I want to bring up, you do a business course as well, don't you?
Yes,
So I want to take that. I'm super excited about that.
I'm super excited about that.
Do you also incorporate archetypes into that? The way
We
that
do
you,
business archetypes. So we look at your archetype and how you work just to see what suits you best in business, right? So if I tried to be, somebody that was live all the time and was like always producing blog material, like a certain style for me, I have to work in shorter increments, right? So we look at your archetype just to see what suits you best so that it's easier for you to do. It's not trying to force yourself into a business that requires so much work that you hate, but you're actually working with spirit and your business. And in that course, we wind up looking at how your products, your services are the things that make you who you are. Even if we both do Akashic record readings, you're going to do it differently than I do. And so the way you talk about it and the way you serve people and the way people get that effect or healing from it is going to be unique to you. And so we look at the way you do things and we use archetypal wisdom for how you should talk about yourself and how you should how you should explain your promotions, like what your promotions would be. Because if we looked at your ascendant sign, for example, we could see how people are going to react to you, or how people most connect with you, and so we'll strengthen those qualities. And then the other part of it is looking at your business aura, which is my favorite part of the course, having a whole separate business aura that allows you a little bit of break from your business and your students and your clients, and keeps you not only working with spirit for your business, but you have time for just you and spirit and your family too.
I love that. That's really cool. Um, because I think, especially when you're like getting into this, you're like, how many internet psychics are out there? you know, and to know that there are so many, like, there are like so many mediums out there, and that it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to think that what you're doing is going to be in any way unique. You
Mm-hmm.
know? So it's nice to know that that what you'll do is unique to you.
Yeah,
That's reassuring. So I
it
definitely
is.
interested.
Yeah.
Sounds
And
really
there's like, for women, there's this stopping place where we switch from service to business person, which has its roots in materialism. And we usually have some fear about that, right? And so we use what's called kind of like the expectation that source is providing for you the people that are benefiting from your work, so that you feel the integrity, right? And that we do things with integrity. We're not doing things just for money, because we want to serve spirit. And so that, especially for spiritual women entrepreneurs, we struggle with that. So, and once we go into our own, and like the whole sea is full, like I just from starting 7 years ago, really being online, it has changed so much in
Mhm.
just that short amount of time. But I think that shouldn't stop anybody. I think if you can push past that hump and you really understand why you're doing this, it's going to work, because the fear won't stop you from serving other people with spirit. You know what I mean? Like it won't stop you. And so I think that that's one of the values of being a spiritual entrepreneur, and knowing that a lot of people want to be entrepreneurs in the world. So me selling you a product that looks and feels like, a pocketbook that you need to carry around, or you carry your kids' clothes in it, a suitcase, is really no different than spiritual assistance and guidance that is going to help you serve other people in the world.
Yeah.
So
No, I love that because it is the whole idea of what do you offer of any value? And that is what I had. It wasn't until I figured out why am I in this that I was like, oh, because I felt almost like guilty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know.
That's so common.
Yeah. Um, do you mind if I ask how you got into astrology? Because you're so well versed in it.
That is the one, and I have to say, if you have something like this, because I know that you love talking about like Akash and doing soul realignments and stuff, but if you have something that you just love to talk about, it is not hard to study it or to get into it. Like it really isn't, because you just do it because you want to, right? And
Uh,
even if I didn't do this for a living, like I didn't think of doing astrology for a living. I started doing mediumship and channeling and intuitive sessions. I never did astrology, but I've been studying astrology for longer than I have been studying intuitive mediumship or intuitive channeling. It was just a hobby of mine. So I just started looking at horoscopes. And then in high school, I went to the library and there was a book about the sun signs. And I just picked one up and it was like everything about me. And me being the young Pisces I am was like, whew, like in dreamland right away. I was like, I want to read everything. So then I went to the military and I decided that as, I probably need to like get some discipline in there. I left all that stuff behind for a while. And then once I got out, I started reading again and going back into it. And so since then, I was just a student, just reading, just absorbing everything that I could.
that's so cool. Was that like a culture shock to come from someplace so regimented and then to go into like the spiritual woo-woo business side? Like,
Yeah. Because I came from, I mean, yeah, military. I was stationed in England for a while, and I got out from active duty and I started working civilian for a long time, but still around like, brass and, all the higher ups and everything. I had a pretty high position in the Air Force Reserve Command here in Georgia. And it was still like very regimented and, Christian and right wing. Like we don't talk about that stuff. That's like the devil stuff. Like, ooh, that's weird. And so when I started meditating, um, and things started happening, I started freaking out. and then like my whole world changed in a year. I had gotten divorced the year prior. I started meditating. I started changing the way I believe about spirit, even about homosexuality, because I came out for the second time after the military, after I left. And I came out again. I had to go through all of that. It was like a whole life transformation. And a lot of people will go to spirituality when their lives are changing like that, when something huge happens in them. You kind of wake up out of this fog, like, who was I trying to be? And who the hell am I? And we search for answers within, sometimes within our souls, within our own families, and sometimes within spirituality.
yeah, I feel you on that one. It's funny you said as soon as you started meditating, things started happening.
Yeah.
And I tell this to everyone who's first getting into this, and I'm like, when you start meditating, weird shit's gonna happen.
Yes.
Because I used meditation to like self-treat my depression and anxiety. And I just sort of dove headfirst into it because it was like a last ditch effort kind of a thing. And I decided to be serious with it. And that's when I started having all of these experiences. And I didn't start taking them seriously until I was sitting on my couch one day meditating and I accidentally picked up some information from my grandma. And I think I had either one of my guides or one of her guides walk up to me and flick me on the forehead
Oh my
because
God.
I wasn't taking it seriously. And they're like, you need to do something about this. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, but it does really seem to be, I didn't really dive into spirituality until I was trying to create a change almost.
Yeah.
I needed that change.
Yeah.
And I didn't come from a military background, but I was like deep into academia. I was like deep into getting perfect grades, going to like the good school. And it was
How did you not know you were a Capricorn?
I look back on it now, and after, like, I don't have the shame and the guilt of it. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what that was.
I remember now, like I totally forgot about it. Like I'm looking back, I'm like, oh, I remember. I remember you questioned that I had to breathe a couple times before I answered you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I love it because it gives me a chance to like, I don't know, I love conversations like that anyway. Like, no, look, you can really embrace this. I just want everybody to feel good too, because I'm a Pisces. So
It's looking back now, I'm sort of like, man, I was a real pain in the ass. But I was just sort of like, but Capricorns suck. But I was coming from this place of like being, I guess, sort of stuck in, I guess, like the science mindset. And then
yeah.
coming from that, which I really excelled at, and then sort of moving into this. And I was like, how do these two things, how can I connect them? So I fought it for a really long time. And I was miserable, because there was always this weird sort of like mystic part of me that I had just sort of never accepted
Yeah.
until like I became an adult in my own right and did accept that inner authority about myself. And then I finally started doing this and took it seriously. And it's funny, I was thinking who I was in January in this year is not the
Yeah.
same person I am today. Isn't that crazy?
No. I was just thinking that recently, like it's amazing. I've gone through like recently like a whole other transformation. Like for me, every time something breaks down, it's like a whole new part of me like wants to be excited and received, but there's another part of me that wants everything to be the same so that I don't have to, like I want it to be easy. I just want routine. I want everything to be the same. So I know what's going to happen. And then I don't get flustered by it. But sometimes it's like that pressure cooker that really brings, I never wanted to accept that because they always say, and I used to hate being a Pisces too, because they say Pisces look through rose colored glasses all the time. They don't want to like accept the mundane or the difficult parts of life. And for sure, that's fucking true. I don't need the pressure. I'm good. I'm a kind person. Why are you putting me through this? But I would never have done half the stuff that I have done had I not been in those pressure cookers to change and to adapt to something new.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure this year being 2020, that it was hell on everybody. But it
Yes.
seems as if I remember writing in one of your groups that there was a weekend around June where I wrote the date every time I wrote it down as 2021. And then it took me, and I didn't realize it until it took me until like Monday. And I was doing it since Friday for me to be like, wait a minute. And then we're still in 2020. And it was weird how I honest to God think I jumped timelines because the amount of growth that happened, it was like I had catapulted through something. And I don't
Yes.
know if it's like it was possible to use this timeline that we're currently on to like put you on a higher timeline or
That's the sole purpose of why we like, I hate talking about it because it can feel like you're minimizing some of the suffering that's happened, right? But there has been, what you just said has been repeated very recently. Like people are starting to go, oh my God, I can't believe what, I've really been through, what I've seen, what we've accomplished through this year. It has not been easy. I mean, it was the whole point what we were just talking about, but um, some people went through like a second awakening. I've heard people talk about that too, like a whole second awakening, a whole nother layer of like karma. Because karma, Saturn, Capricorns this year, Saturn, Pluto, been through the pressure cooker, especially Capricorns. So you guys have really had it the hardest as far as internal pressure this past year. And so, but Saturn does represent karma or past or getting over fears or having to work through something very detailed, very slowly, breaking old patterns. And, with that much energy in Capricorn and Saturn and Pluto and all these conjuncts, I'm not going to go into, we talked about it last night, but it has been that breakdown that allows us to restructure and to grow and to see where our strengths really were. And June in 2021, I think it's June, Jupiter moves into Pisces. And since Jupiter rules Pisces, things are going to start to get really better, like a lot nicer, flowy, expansion, art, like things are going to, into, I think intuitively, it's going to be a really safer time to even be kinder to ourselves and to take a break a little bit from how much work we've been doing over the past couple of years.
Well, thank God, because it's been a doozy, man. I even quit like my corporate job this year, and I'm like doing this full time now, and it has like scared the crap out of me. But it got to the point where it was like, what else can I do? Like I don't have
Mm-hmm.
any options anymore. Like I have boxed myself in to doing something different. And I was talking to my dad, because my dad and I also do a podcast called the Dadcast, where he bring, as like someone who has no idea what I'm doing, he sits down and he asks me like, so what's this? And
Oh,
all
that's so cute.
it's so fun. But I was talking to him like, I think I used the COVID timeline not to make life perfect for myself, but I think I used it to help change me
Oh yeah.
and to put me on a different timeline. And he's like, that's really interesting, because we were talking about like the spiritual significance of COVID-19. And I'm like, there's probably more qualified people out there to talk about it than me. But I think that this was maybe like a pressure cooker scenario for
Yeah.
us to like make changes and do something different. It's good to have that validated,
Yeah.
especially someone who goes into the Akashic records a lot. How often do you? Is this like an everyday thing where you go in with your guides and you check out the Akash?
Um, they're telling me it should be. But yeah, like pretty regularly. The way that I teach the Akashic record, you guys had the real intense, reading part of it. Like we just taught you how to do every part of a full Akashic record reading. But in the Akash, you can visit your Akash at the level of where you're writing it now, after you've cleaned up some garbage from the past, right? We do the past and then the present and the future, and we do the future. We can use the Akashic record to, it's kind of like other methods where you go into the, not the abyss, but like the quantum field, right? Um, and so with the Akash, you're working with your guides, you're working with your soul plan, you're working with your authority, which is why I like using the Akash. Now, those are the words and the reasons why, I do it that way. Because it's also like your soul helping you rewrite stories and to give you the energy to make the right choices to skip timelines so that you don't have to keep repeating lessons. And so when you visit on a regular basis, you can actually set up certain validations for yourself. You can set up certain creative abilities, things that you can do with your body's health. You can ask your Akash almost anything, for yourself. I don't spend too much time there because they sometimes kick me out because I want to know why for everything. And that's just me being a pain in the ass, right? So
They kick you out.
yeah, it's like you get one or two questions, one or two things, and I'll leave it alone. And what I notice is that if I keep trying, I go to a lower level. Like I can get information, but it's not that golden light creative part. You can still grab information. And I think anybody can grab information from the Akash, but you really have to be able to like see it from source perspective to know like how to rearrange and rewrite and, release and all that stuff. And so yeah, daily is recommended for very short periods of time.
Okay, interesting. And if you want to know something funny, I just came to the realization that when I tap into people's soul blueprints, I'm actually sort of tapping into their Akashic record.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed to tell you how long it took me to figure that out. I may have been today years old when I finally figured out, when I was like, oh, you know what? I think that's what I'm doing. But it was because when I first started doing this and I first started taking it seriously, I worked with a medium to teach me mediumship. But
Yeah.
instead, my guides just kept showing me people's soul blueprints. Like they would just show me someone as like a grid pattern or a snowflake or like a mandala. And
Yeah.
I just intuitively knew that that was their blueprint. Like this is just the 2D representation of 3D them and, things like that.
Oh,
And so
wow.
I didn't have the what I didn't have the
Verbiage. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
to know what that could have been. And so I was just like, okay, let's just talk about why you came here and what it is that we're here to do. And it's like
Yeah.
as I was describing it, I was working with Will Carlos today and he's trying to get me to narrow down my niche. And that was when I figured out that I'm actually going into people's and I'm like, thank God I worked with Lauren because otherwise I would have no idea.
Yeah, there's different, I mean, there are different ways to access them. I love that. The soul's blueprint for me is like, it's really special because, when we did, our Akashic intensive, you can go from now to like how your soul trains in between lifetimes, all the way up to, the Akash of your original blueprint, like what soul group you were originated from and all that stuff. And then when you look at your soul's blueprint, like for me, the only difference, it's all in the Akash. The only difference is that if I'm just focused on you today, we're looking at this pathway, not all of like your interdimension, like all that stuff. We're just looking at how your soul is organized itself to be you in this lifetime, it's so incredible. Like I can talk about that stuff all day. To me, it's so fascinating. It makes me go, working in the Akash and working with blueprints, like makes me go, I'm so lucky to be alive. Like you start to appreciate how much it took for you to be you right now. And you're never going to be you again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to me, that's like so precious.
That's a really cool perspective. That's taking it like the next level. I like that a lot. It's I think the way that I like how you do Akashic Records readings is because you're only focused on this current path. And I think that that is what's most useful because when I first decided to take your course, I was like, oh, let's figure out what my past lives were. Like I was just doing it to get information, but you're like, no, let's focus on this journey right
Yeah.
here. And you're absolutely right because that's where the good stuff is because this is the life that you're living. Like who cares what you're doing as a Pleiadian? Like that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What matters is this right
Yeah.
now. Yeah. And I think I actually wanted to run this by you and just hear what you think about it because whenever I go into the Akash, I'm always trying to see like what are my past human lives and I can never ever get one. But I am interested to hear people talk about their past lives because my understanding of past lives is that I have never no one's really ever had one. Like you're only ever Lauren and I'm only ever been Julia.
Yeah.
And so when you pick up on a past life, I think, or what I understand, is that you're just going up to your oversoul, and your oversoul is saying, well, this is another experience I'm having. Do you want to pull from this stream of information as well?
That's how I view it too.
Okay.
Because you can't like, it's not like this soul, and I don't know how other people view about this. It's not like the soul that's inhabiting this body, the energy that's inhabiting this body is going to disappear and move into another body, right? Like your oversoul, like if you've ever read Journey of Souls, oh, I forgot his name. Oh, I love him. Newton, John Newton. Yeah. He explains it really well. In that it's like you have a certain amount of your oversoul's energy in a body. Some people have like a really high amount. Some people, even old souls that are guides for other people and decide to incarnate again. Well, they're like, oh, I have too much busy stuff going over here. So I'm only going to give you 20% of your soul light. You can do it because you're so, you're so knowledgeable, your soul's so knowledgeable. And a lot of times those old souls will feel like depression or anxiety, until they kind of like wake up. But on another level, they're so high doing something, and we think, oh, we're just, if I have anxiety, I'm not a awakened soul, I'm not a good person, I have to ascend. And sometimes you've already ascended, like 12 times now.
Yeah.
So I always feel, I feel the same. And that the way that astrology helped me to understand that is because, let's just talk about like 3D, or 3, 4, 5D. You have a time, a space, where you were born, time and date, and space, where your soul, once it takes its first breath, it imprints onto your energy. So that's where your birth chart comes from. Your birth chart is literally like a micro universe, walking around interacting with other micro universes, and every time my little micro universe connects with yours, a new birth chart is born. Like, that time and space hits another level of, it's like quantum physics almost. It's like you hit another level of connection. You're changed, I'm changed, and something in the environment changes. And so time and space has this whole other level to it, that's not just this like linear time. So if if I can see all of that and go back 5 years, and the imprint of my energy is still in the time and space that I interacted with somebody, you can still view that in the Akash, right?
Yeah.
Which means that on some level, all of our lifetimes are happening at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly how I see it too. And it's funny as you're describing the little universes and the universe meets another universe. Again, I call those blueprints. Like two people have a blueprint between each other. Like
Yeah,
that relationship has a highest intention. That's its blueprint. That's how I see it too. That's really cool.
I love that.
I think it's a common misconception because when you look at like how popular media talks about reincarnation, it's always like, oh, that's just you in another body. And it's like, that's not happening.
No,
So when I
no.
have people come to me and they're like, oh, I had this really traumatic past life and it's really holding me down. And I'm like, well, you can let it go because it's
Uh,
not yours, you know?
Say it louder for the people in the back, please. Please. Because I mean, we know Pisces, that can be dramatic, but yes, you carry the wisdom and the stories, and sometimes your energy is more closely related to a past life that you're working out the karma or the lesson for, but you are still this creator. You are still this chooser of your reality. You are still utilizing that experience. And so when we update the Akashic records, I'm sure you do it like in your own way, but we bring it up to date. We're not actually changing it, but we're bringing it up to date. We're allowing the self to hear what was learned and what was needed and what no longer needs to be chosen. So they have this new choice in front of them. And a lot of times after an Akashic record reading, which I think is one of the most healing readings, and blueprint readings are the most intense readings. Like, you need one of them, but that reading will last you like 6 months. Like, it will take at least 6 months for you to see the full energy of that play out. And then you go into the Akash and you update it, and then they're faced with circumstances where they get to choose from this new awareness, from this new consciousness state. Healing the records only takes you so far. You then have to face the reality that allows the timeline to shift once you make that new choice from that new conscious awareness.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yes, exactly. I concur. That's exactly what I do. And that's like my favorite part of the job because giving people the opportunity to make different choices gets me so excited. It can keep me up
Yes,
all night. I love it so much. Um, and I did just have like one more. I feel like I could talk to you forever about this, but I did
I
have
know.
one more question. So the way I've always sort of viewed karma is that it's not necessary. You don't have to hold on to karma and that you can put it down and start interacting with this situation from an entirely new perspective to heal it. That's how have seen it.
Yes.
You see it different. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of the, like, I had struggled with that for a long time because that's the way my guides had taught me at first when I was like newbie, right? And then I started reading about other philosophies, especially Vedic astrology and things like that, where it was really karmic based. I mean, so you can read some of the stuff and go, oh my, it's very religious and dogmatically based, like a lot of dogma. And you can still tap into those types of timelines and that type of belief system, because what I've learned about doing the Akashic records is that even your soul will go through different places, like after, like your soul groups may never even meet another soul group ever. You know what I mean? Ever. It's not like heaven is like this one big party place. It is like literally different dimensional time space spots that we go to. Even as a soul, even as not having a body, we
Mhm.
don't know everything. We don't get to experience everything. We
That
just
gets
have
me
a
so
new
excited. I love that.
yeah. So we can tap in. So yes, you have that creative part can release that karma. And opening the heart does that, like working from that Christ consciousness. I think that's why we talk about awakening and 5D and blah 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 woo woo stuff. But really, when you're out of the mind and you're into the heart, you drop that karmic experience, because in 3D, even in 4D, you have to experience it to change the aura, to change the DNA, to manifest in physical. But then when you're moving away from that, it's not like you're not ever going to have a problem again, but your heart allows that karma to be released so that you're showing up as the creative in those situations rather than the deliverer of pain to somebody or the receiver of pain from somebody.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's sort of just how I one day decided that I was angry at suffering and didn't think it was necessary. It was a shower meditation, and these thoughts popped into my head, and my guides were like, you don't have to. And
Oh my
I
God.
was like, huh. I've been sold lies.
Give me louder. All right, so it's getting dark here. I'm sorry for the loss of light, but that's what happened on my journey. And I think that's why I went through like a whole other like second dark night of the soul, because that's what my guides told me at first. And then I had other teachers and other people tell me, no, that's not true.
Mhm.
And I went back into this like, oh, okay. And I forgot my light. I forgot my connection to source.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I had to remember that again.
yeah. Word. Amen. Love it. Well, I don't want to keep you forever, even though I could keep you forever.
I
Do you want to
know.
tell everyone where they can find you of the stuff that you have coming up next? Because I know you have some exciting stuff coming up.
Yeah, thank you. You can go to my webpage at soulfultransformations.com. I do a lot on Facebook. I have Soulful Connections, my group, which I'm really loving, and the Facebook page where I do astrology updates pretty regularly. And I have a course coming up called Divine Design Business. I'll be selling my official Akashic and updated Akashic record textbook and activation course on my website soon. That's all being updated this month. And I have an astrology course coming up. And next year we're doing retreat in March in Georgia, in the in the mountains of North Georgia,
Oh, cool.
and and in May, we'll be doing another Body of Light course. And so everything that we've been crunched in this year to like rework is all starting to be like planned out over the next year. I'm really excited.
Amazing. I'm so excited too. So, yeah, I will link everything in the episode description because you guys should definitely check out Lauren. She's a powerhouse. She's got so much knowledge. She just loves to share with people. And I hope we can do this again sometime. I had so much fun. But
Anytime. This was such a great conversation. Such a pleasure. Thank you.
thank you. All right. Bye, everyone.